So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about how to relaunch your career after having a career break today. So some of the topics that we're going to go over, we're going to talk about, where do you start with that in terms of goal setting, self-reflection, the importance of networking. I do want to outline briefly kind of the job search tasks that come along with this. And for some of you, if you're coming out of a break right now, and it's been a long time since you've been job searching, there might be some new information here, or there probably is some new information here. We'll talk about overcoming challenges. And of course, as I mentioned, we are going to have that live Q&A. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is talk about acknowledgement. You are not going to hide your career break. All right. So during the course of someone's career, there are several reasons we may have a period that we're not working. Of course, someone we could have been laid off or fired, but other reasons might be a little bit more personal, like having a child or having to take care of parents or children or somebody in your family. So whatever the reason may be, it is a natural part of a person's career experience. And I think since 2020, I know since 2020, more and more workers have had career breaks. During the early days of the pandemic, many people were laid off or furloughed. And so to a degree, a career break is not really a surprise to hiring managers any longer, or like it used to be. And later on in the presentation, we're going to talk about how you can communicate your break on your resume, in your cover letter, and during your interview. All right, so how do you go from being out of the workforce to getting back into it? Well, the first part of the process of returning to work is going to involve a lot of self-reflection. I think this is similar with a career change as well. This is not always the most fun place to be because I think when we're ready to go back to work, it's just let's look at job descriptions and let's start applying to jobs, right? But in order to have a really productive and effective job search, you do want to spend some time in this space of self-reflection and discovery. So first, you want to figure out what is it you really want to do when you enter the workforce or re-enter the workforce, if you will. This also will include maybe like the level of work that you would like, full-time or part-time. Of course, now, and if you found FlexJobs, you know that we have remote and hybrid jobs on our site. So you really want to do some self-reflection to figure out what it is that you really want and what kind of timeline you have for returning. Also, take a peek at your old resume to refresh your memory on your career accomplishments and experiences, the specific ones. Think about as you're reviewing that, what you really enjoyed about your previous job or jobs, and also things that maybe weren't as engaging for you or didn't draw, a lot of energy when you were doing those things. And then think about yourself going into this role or a similar one again. And what kind of feeling does that manifest? Does it feel like it's still a good fit? And if not, what pieces of what you did before do you hope will be a part of your next role? Write a solid list of your skills and strengths. What do you want or what do you value from work or working? This is an important question to ask yourself as well. So you need to identify and highlight the strengths and skills that you want to utilize in your next role. And you also want to know and understand where your values are at and what you want to get out of your next job. Another consideration is to think through your timeline to returning for work, which I mentioned. If it's been a while since you searched for jobs, it'll be important to kind of get a lay of the land for how you are going to tailor your resume and tailor your cover letter for each job that you apply to, for example. Now, you may not have done that previously the last time you were looking for jobs, but that is something that needs to happen now. It's also important to adequately, manage expectations for how long a job search will take. The most recent data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics is really saying that people are out of work for about 20 weeks or just about 5 months, and it's getting a little bit longer. So a 3 to 6 month job search is definitely reasonable to expect. And what we're seeing is that many people are in a job search for the higher end of that time and sometimes even longer. When you're coming back from a career break, this might take even longer depending on your circumstances and things like that. Now, if you do want to return to your old career, you might need to do some research on skills required now to do the role. So will you need to get or renew any certifications? Are there other upskilling or skill building opportunities available that would make you a more competitive candidate? Many of you may have heard of AI, or if you've been to other of our webinars before, there has been an explosion of AI tools over the last couple of years. So AI may be something that is impacting the role and the way you used to do it. So that might be right out of the gate, rather, a way for you to do some upskilling to see how AI can enhance and make you more productive in the work that you want to do. Now, you want to also think about, who do you know that still works in this type of space? Do you have any network connections in the industry or companies you've worked in before? Because you could reach out to them and really see, and ask them some questions and have some conversations with him. Now, if I circle back, I think it's important, we didn't talk about this yet, but I want to circle back to the values conversation about this. Think about, because sometimes we're kind of like, yeah, my values are this and I want to work. But to be more specific, think about, are your values around, the monetary benefits of work? Is it around finding a job that allows you to keep your own basic life values or work-life balance? Is it that you want a job that allows you to pursue your passions for the greater good? In other words, like nonprofit work or social change? Are your values that you want to work somewhere that you find some sort of fulfillment? Is it you want a place where you work on your competencies and learn new skills? Are you interested in professional development once you get back into work? Sometimes, and my values have changed over the course of my career because you might be in a specific stage of life that you're currently navigating through. And so maybe that is something that you want to consider in the types of jobs that you're looking for. So these are just some things that you want to consider and think about as part of your self-reflection. And so again, this is a place that requires a little bit of work that may get a little bit uncomfortable, because we really have to sit in the space of, okay, this is where I was before. A lot has happened since then, and this is where I want to go. And then getting that on paper and really understanding that is going to help you with the next steps, which are setting goals and taking action. So once you've spent some time figuring out what you want to go back to or what new path you're going to try, you want to set some goals to land your job. So this is going to be different for everybody here. In general, though, there are a few things that you want to consider and put some thought into. First, if you're going through a career change or a career pivot and need to upskill or get certified in something, this should be something that you prioritize first. Now, some things you can upskill and do without having to get a certification, and other things you can't. So identify programs, plans, and courses that you can participate in to get your skills in order, because that's going to help make you an even more competitive candidate once you're doing those and getting those certifications or whatever it is you've identified you need. Another piece of the job search is going to entail looking at job descriptions and analyzing what you are seeing. What are the key technical skills you notice for the roles you are looking for? Look for some of the key skills and experience levels that most of the jobs you're targeting are looking for, because it's important to understand the industry you are returning to or entering to make sure you have the skills, you know what to do to get the skills. And also, it's important to know this to understand so that you can update your resume and digital profiles like LinkedIn so that you are putting yourself in a position as a person capable and ready to do the type of job you want to land. Interestingly, I was listening to a podcast recently. Some of you may have heard of the Huberman Lab podcast. He has many great episodes and he talks a lot about science. And this particular episode was on goal setting. So I found it relatable to job searching, career development, and things like that. He shared something that really got me to stop and think. It was pretty eye-opening for me anyway, so I want to share it with you. I'm sure many of you have heard, like myself, that we should like create a sticky note or put a sticky note somewhere that has our goal written on it. So we see it every day, which then sort of becomes a reminder to recommit to that goal each time we see it. And actually, what he said is it doesn't really work the way that we think it does when we do that. In fact, he said our mind and body get used to seeing the same thing in the same spot day after day, and it kind of loses its value a little bit. And of course, I'm paraphrasing, but what he said works much better to achieve a goal is to write that goal down every day and put it somewhere different so our visual and physical cues are different. So if your goal is to change careers or get a job in 6 months or whatever you decide is your main goal, you want to take a few seconds to record that or to write it down each day and put it somewhere different in order to keep it top of mind. Then what you'll find is the motivation and discipline to achieve this will not wane as much. So I thought that was really interesting and I wanted to share it here, particularly because we're going to talk a little bit later on about other things that you can do to maintain your motivation during a job search. And this, to me, really resonated. All right. So for each step in the process of setting your goals, you want to work backwards from your ultimate long-term goals, 6 months, whatever it is to land a job. You want to work on monthly goals, weekly goals, and daily goals. So this is a good system to ensure you are doing what you need to do to re-enter the workforce. And again, the goals that you write down and what you do daily is going to differ than, from the person who's next to you or, somebody else in your network. So really just think about what's going to work for you and a reasonable way for you to get through those. All right. We've talked a couple times about upskilling. And if this is one of your action items, I just want to highlight a couple of things. You will want to put smaller goals in place to execute your upskilling activities. And if you aren't sure if you need upskilling, as I mentioned, the job postings are a good way to start. But if they're not giving you the clarity you need, you could try some prompts into an AI tool. See, here I'm bringing up AI again. But you could ask an AI tool, whichever one you prefer, what are some key skills needed to be a competitive candidate for a job in project management? And you could even add, I am returning to work after an X number of year break. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see an answer that AI gave to be a competitive candidate for a job in project management. You'll need a combination of technical, interpersonal, and organizational skills. Here are some key skills and attributes that can make you stand out. And you can see leadership, communication, organizational skills, time management, risk, and budget management. You also could ask ChatGPT something like, I'm returning to work after a 5-year break. I want to pursue a job in writing. What are some of the key skills I need on my resume to be a competitive applicant? Now you'll see this on the right-hand side of the screen. And some of the key skills listed are writing skills, of course, editing, proofreading, research, digital skills, storytelling, and adaptability. So again, using an AI tool can help you narrow down and focus on what you need to do in terms of upskilling and other things in your return to work job search. We do also have an upskilling webinar that you can listen to for more concrete planning activities around upskilling. Okay, I promised we'd talk about the job search tasks that are necessary to land a role in this market. And first, I want to pop up a poll because I am curious, have any of you ever gotten a job through somebody you know or knew before? Yes or no? Have you gotten a job through somebody that you have known in the past? All right, those answers are coming in. My expectation is that many of you answered yes. You have gotten a job through knowing somebody before, or the word for that is networking. And the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know, definitely applies in the job search. You will definitely want to plan and execute some networking activities as you prepare to return to work. So if you have a LinkedIn profile already, you're definitely going to want to spend some time updating it with your latest information and skills. Pay careful attention to your LinkedIn headline, the about section of your profile, as well as your skills section. Focusing on these three is a great place to start, as each of these sections have the opportunity for you to make your profile keyword and skill rich, which helps the people who are searching using keywords find your profile. Then you want to look for professional associations and groups, both on LinkedIn and elsewhere. Let people in your network know your plans to return to work and what you want to do. Try to set up informational interviews, go to company and industry webinars and events whenever and if you are able. Getting in front of people is a really important thing to do as you're looking to return to work. So networking first. Next, resumes. Now, I said we were going to talk about how you can add and how you should add a career break to your resume. We do have these samples included in the presentation. You will get them in the recap as well, but there are a few different ways that you can use different verbiage for your career break, if you will. You definitely want to put it in your experience section, especially if it's, if it's over 6 months or more. That's kind of a good rule of thumb when you want to add it. You can label it a career break. Sometimes it might be a planned career break. Maybe you took an intentional pause to focus on full-time caregiving, excited and energized to return to work. Maybe it was an active career break. So if you were laid off, you could say part of a reduction in force due to the global pandemic. Utilize time to reflect on professional goals, refine long-term career direction, and pursue targeted upskilling. So these are some things that you can mention too on your resume regarding your career break. You don't need to go into a ton of detail. Just acknowledging it allows you to maintain control over the narrative and why you were on a break. So these are the examples for your resume. Now, in your cover letter, as a reminder, a cover letter should really be a page or less, 250 to 500 words. If you are going to mention your cover letter, if you're going to mention your career break on your cover letter, you can do that. You also want to share your enthusiasm to return to work and your excitement about the company. You might write something like, with more than 7 years of experience in a team lead role, I've coached staff, trained new hires, implemented solutions for complex customer issues, and built team morale. After a 2-year career break to manage family responsibilities, I'm ready to rejoin the workforce and I'm more energized than ever. So that's just an example of what you could put in your cover letter. If you have it on your resume, you may decide not to put it on your cover letter, and I think that's fine. You don't have to focus on it in both, if you will. But either way, both examples show how brief you can be with the cover letter. Now, during the interview, you may be asked why you had a career break, or you might be asked something about it. And there are several resources, some of which are included in our recap, that are out there on the most common interview questions asked first and foremost. So that's something that you definitely want to study to get used to interview questions and how you want to respond to those. Again, AI tools can also be helpful in interview preparation. Now, as I mentioned, you may be asked a question about your career break or why you're returning to work. So make sure you are clear on these answers prior to your interviews. And when asked about a break, here's something that you might say, or some version of this. I feel fortunate that I was able to step out of the workforce for a bit to spend time with my family. Now I'm excited and energized to return to my professional goals. I'm very passionate about, and then insert the job or the subject or the industry. and I'm looking forward to returning to work. Joining an organization like yours will allow me to make a valuable contribution to your team and help your clients achieve their goals as a result. You also could add something about some of the skills you developed when you were on your career break. During my time out of the workforce, I led fundraising efforts for our local school PTO, raising X dollars for a new playground that was much needed and now better serves the students in our community. Something along those lines. And then, of course, you're going to practice with somebody or in front of a mirror, or if you're doing a video interview, you could record yourself on Zoom and play it back to give yourself some feedback. You could also do some mock interviews online as well. All right, personal branding is also an important part of the job search, especially if you're returning to work. Now, the degree to which you kind of create your brand depends on your industry. For example, if you're a content creator or in tech, for example, it may be a good idea to have an online portfolio or a website that showcases your work. In other industries, being active on LinkedIn can be enough to kind of establish yourself as a thought leader in your field. You want to be active and post and comment on platforms like LinkedIn, like and engage with others on them so you become more visible to more people. The more activity you have, the more visible you will be and the greater reach you will have as well. All right, so job searching. There are there are many different ways to locate jobs you want to apply for and also allow you to read the descriptions to gather information for what you need to do moving forward. On the screen, there is an example of using advanced search functions on the FlexJobs site with various filters for the type of job that you want, like part-time, full-time, or remote. You don't need to only search job titles either. In fact, searching using your key skills or strengths that you want to apply, leverage in your next role, can be really great for finding more specific results to your situation. So, for example, you might put something like project coordination plus organization as your keywords to see what is popping up for jobs that require project coordination and organization. Now, I want to play a video example of this using Boolean search parameters. So let's check it out. Okay, so I just want to kind of demonstrate how you can use different phrases and keywords to narrow down your job search to be more specific to something you might want to do. So for this, I've already typed in marketing coordinator and a location, and you can see that there are 227 positions available within that location. Now, if I go in and change this, and let's say I'm a very organized person, I want to go ahead and add the word organization with a plus sign and continue to keep the location and run a search for that. Now, from 227 jobs, I have narrowed it down to marketing and organization in the job description somewhere down to 190, which is great. And then you can filter it more depending on the level of remote job you'd like, job type, schedule, and things like that. Now, what if you want to look for jobs that don't require a degree? So what I'm going to do here is keep marketing. I'm going to keep the plus organization phrase, and then I'm going to do a dash and the word degree, which would then pull out any jobs that have the word degree in the job description. So let's see what happens when we do that. That went from 190 to 131. So in this list, what you should have are the jobs that have the word marketing and organization in the job description, but do not have the word degree. So the theory behind that would be that all of the jobs in that in the results here would not require a degree, or at least it's not mentioned in the job description. And so these are just some ways that you can play around with different keywords and phrases to really make your search much more laser focused to what you're looking for and the skill set that you have. All right. So there are many options for you to work through in terms of searching for jobs. And that example sort of demonstrated various different keywords that you could use to kind of make your search results much more manageable. And I think that can be really beneficial and helpful because having a list of 500 jobs, 400, 300 jobs is really overwhelming. And so the more focused and filtered you can make it, the more manageable it'll be for you when you start applying to jobs. And then you can make adjustments beyond that if you find that it's not leading to the results that you were hoping for. All right, so let's talk about the importance of confidence and support. It is important as you work through this process that you give yourself some grace. If it's been several years since you've worked, know that a lot about the job search has probably changed, and it's likely that the way that you apply to jobs has changed as well. So it's going to take some time getting used to. And you want to celebrate each step you take along the way, each new thing you learn. If it's the first time you've tailored your resume, if it's the first interview you've had, all of those things are worthy of celebration. Here are some other things that will naturally kind of build your confidence along the way. So make sure that you do something to build your skills, which we've talked a lot about today. Think about confidence boosting activities that you like to do, whether that is, extracurricular or in terms of the work that you want to do, even attending seminars and webinars like this make a really big difference. Think about what you did during your break and what, you learned and kind of the growth that you had during that time. Leaning into your support system is important as well. I think starting each day with a gratitude practice can really make a big difference, or even a positive message or affirmation can help you, maintain momentum as you go through the job search. Mindset is really an important tool to help get through the job search, and we do need to exercise it each day as we go through. All right. So what do you want to do to have a successful re-entry into the workforce? First is the self-reflection piece, which we talked a lot about at the beginning of the presentation. Brainstorm, assess, reflect on where you've been, and most importantly, where you want to go. Set those goals and write out your action plan in whatever way works for you to know that you'll be getting action items done each day. Of course, we're going to update your job docs, your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn, and other digital profiles. That's going to be really important as well. And then we mentioned networking too, and leaning into that network and making sure people know what it is you are looking for and hoping to do. All right, as promised, we do have some time for a Q&A, but before we get there, please know that there is a plethora of resources on the FlexJobs blog. So if you go to flexjobs.com/blog, you can find and search for articles on any topic that you might encounter in your job search. So we encourage you to do that. And now I want to go ahead and get to the questions that we have for today. Hi, everybody. This is Tony. Thanks for being here today. Hopefully this information was helpful, but I do see we have some questions. So let's go ahead and dive right in. First, is being at retirement age a hurdle to job search? Well, in a perfect world, the answer would be absolutely not. However, there are some things that you do want to keep in mind if you are somebody who has a lot of experience or years of work, or maybe are a little bit older. We do have a lot of resources on how to manage or handle ageism in a job search. So I encourage you to look those out, look at those and attend our webinars on the topic, because we go into a lot more detail. But it's important that your resume is meeting or updated to sort of the latest standards in resumes, which means there's not an objective statement. you don't have references available on request listed on your resume, 10 to 15 years of experience is all you really need to include. Even things as much as your email address. Having an email address with something like Earthlink or AOL sort of ages or dates people, because not many people are using those anymore. Most people are using Gmail or Outlook as a service provider. So those are some things that you can consider. You also want to present yourself as somebody who is enthusiastic, energetic, and eager to continue to work. And those are some things that you can do throughout your resume, of course, but during the interview and through your digital profiles as well. If you have been active in a volunteer role, either part-time or full-time, is that considered a career break? Not necessarily. I would say that you can list, we've done this a couple of different ways, or I've done this a couple of different ways when working with clients who have volunteer experience. So if you are volunteering in a role that is highly related and highly relevant to the role that you are applying for, you could list your volunteer role right in your work experience section as if it were work, paid work. Now, if you've been on a career break and you, after a few years, maybe you were staying home with your kids or taking care of an unwell family member, and then you started doing some volunteer work, you can nest that information right under or within the career break entry on your resume. Let's see. On an interview, what is the best approach in explaining how I still have skills and have been taking LinkedIn, Udemy type classes to stay relevant? Most companies have been looking for someone who has been in the workforce and ready to come in, ready to go with minimal onboarding time. Yeah, so you really want to, first, of course, this starts on your resume, including the skills that you do know and any relevant coursework. But also, I think when you're talking about your career break in an interview, you can say, during the course of my time, during this planned career break, I've been really excited about and challenging myself to learn some new skills, learn some new technologies. I have a very quick learning curve and am able to kind of jump right into something new and work on it right away, which makes me really excited about this role because I've already started learning about X, Y, and Z. And I know that that will only be enhanced, if I was hired into this role. Let's see. How do you word a career break due to domestic violence? Well, I'm sorry that you are dealing with that. And for everybody's awareness, in the handout section, we do have samples as part of our samples. And I showed this on the presentation. There are different ways to word a career break. I would just say a planned career break, and in your bullet, say an intentional pause out of the workforce to take care of family, excited and energized to return to work, and that's it. That's the same with the next question. How do you word a break because you were sick and in the hospital? I would just say an intentional pause out of the workforce to take care of family or to take care of myself. Excited and energized to return to work. What is the recommended length for a resume? How much detail should be included for a professional role? Great question. 1 to 2 pages is a good general rule of thumb. If you have, 10 to 15 years of experience, you'll probably falling on the second page a little bit. There's no reason to have a resume that is more than 2 pages unless the role that you are looking for requires 20, 30 years of in-depth experience and you have to include some additional things. But for most of us, almost 100% of us out there, 1 to 2 pages works. Now, a general rule of thumb for your work experience, for each job that you have, 3 to 6 bullets is probably a good rule of thumb. And that's quite a range, right? Like 3 isn't very many and 6 is double that. If you've been at a role for 10 years, you're likely going to have the higher end of the bullets. If you've been at a role for 1 year, you may not need any more than 3 bullets. So there's a little bit of nuance there. Now, if you've been at your same job for 10 years and you're only going to include 10 years of experience on your resume, you might have 7 or 8 bullets. Again, the bullets are meant to be accomplishment, result, and impact oriented. It is not a task list or a responsibility list. So that might be a way to look at it to see, how can I pare down some of my bullets? Is this really sharing any information on how I could have an impact in this role if I was hired, or is it just a responsibility that I had? And if it's just a responsibility and it's not really giving the person who's looking to fill the role any additional information about you and the impact you can make, you can delete that bullet. Let's see. Do you have any insight or data into whether employees in this current challenging job market prefer skills-based or chronological formats on resumes? I still think the majority of employers are looking for reverse chronological resumes. I will say that more and more employers are embracing skill-based hiring versus stringent degree requirements and things like that. And so if you are doing a chronological resume, you could consider the hybrid format that we talk about all the time, which has a profile summary at the top and sort of a skills section. And that way you're sort of meeting the needs of both types of resumes and showcasing your skills as well as highlighting your impact and results at specific positions. Let's see. Same question. I'm 58 and have been out of the work field for 4 years. I'm wanting to change my career from printing and then into CNA work to work with children. Salary is important though. Yeah, for those of you that are looking for career change, we do have webinars and resources on that, of course, but I do think that talking to people, trying to do some informational interviews, finding a mentor, or just kind of having some conversations with people doing the type of work that you want to do can give you valuable information on how you should and can pursue that path to become a competitive applicant. And of course, when salary, and of course, it always is a concern, isn't it? When salary is something that's important, you can kind of gauge then and get some more real-time data on what you could be expecting for salary, starting points and things like that. Let's see. How do I find a job in a very competitive climate? I'm trying to a role in international advocacy and I am never able to get through the letter round. I have a lot of relevant experience, but I cannot seem to get my foot in the door, especially since I know that with interviews, I tend to really make a positive impression. Any advice? Yeah, yeah, a couple of things, and some of these things you might be doing. It's hard to get very granular in without some more specifics. But of course, tailoring your resume, including a cover letter for every job that you apply for. You can use tools like My Perfect Resume or JobScan to see how your resume would hold up in an ATS for a particular job. So I encourage you to do that. I don't know if you have a strategy to follow up with each company after your job applications, or if you are reaching out to any connections you might have at a specific company when you submit your application. Those are some things that can make a difference as well. The idea here is that in this competitive market, which it is, and it is taking people longer to land a role right now than in the previous 5 to 7 years, you have to be very proactive. It's more than just submitting your application and waiting. Obviously, you'll be applying to multiple jobs at a time, but you do want to kind of try to make yourself continually visible to these employers by following up on applications, by making sure your LinkedIn profile has the right skills and that it's positioning you for the type of role that you're hiring for, that you are active on the platform and following the companies that you are applying with and that you are connecting with people at those companies and things like that. Those are some things that if you're not doing, I would start doing those. Also, if you've been applying to a very narrow field or a very specific type of job with a specific type of job title, I may do some keyword searching in your job search as well, like we showed in the presentation. So you could possibly expand your search into other types of roles or into a new industry and see if you can get any momentum if you make that shift and start applying to a wider range of types of jobs that you've been looking for. With the holidays coming up, and I know we have a holiday job searching webinar coming up in a few weeks, some companies do accelerate hiring or hire for seasonal employees, which isn't always ideal, but sometimes those jobs can turn into more permanent roles. So that is something that you could explore and add to your list as well. It's a constant challenge to continue to be creative and proactive as you're seeking employment, because also it's very frustrating and takes a lot of discipline to stay the course when the feedback and the response rate for most people right now is unfortunately very low. But that's very common. So it's not just you, but that it does just kind of create a constant stream of activities, um, putting yourself out there to gain some traction and some peaks from potential employers. Let's see. How would I explain the short time span for past two jobs? Um, Mother has severe depression and unfortunately committed suicide. Then after that, I chose to resign to take care of my terminally who was on hospice. How would I explain? That's a lot. I'm sorry that you have gone through that. I think what I would do is I would just say an intentional pause out of the workforce to attend to family matters, or to take care of family. Excited and energized to return to work. You don't have to give a ton of detail. The idea here is that you are putting sort of a placeholder on your resume that gives a brief idea of why you are out of the workforce instead of leaving it blank. So the employer fills in the blanks for you. And so something very brief, you're not going into a lot of detail. It's not important for the employer to know all of those specifics, rather that you had a break, you attended to family, and now you're ready to go back to work. And that's how you want to position the break there. You don't have to don't feel that you have to go into any specifics like that. Let's see. I did administrative work right after university, but I left to pursue other things, eventually working towards a master's in art therapy. But in the end, I decided being a therapist wasn't what I wanted. Now I want to go back to administrative work to support myself while I continue my education to go into research. I'm finding it difficult to communicate what or why I want to return to this work in an appealing way, when really it's just to support myself financially, and that the work feels the most apt to my experience and income needs. Well, I would focus on the work feeling the most apt to your experience. So what are the skills? What is the experience that you have that are relevant to the roles that you are applying to? So in an interview, you can talk about, over the course of your time working and as a student, you understand that organization, the specific things that are mentioned in the job description that have been transferable as a student, but also you have, as a result of having a history as somebody who works in the administrative field, make you a really strong candidate. And that is what I would focus on there, the skills that you have that fit with the role. How can I pivot to different field if I have degree in plant and soil sciences to widen my job search? This is where I would use that example that we talked about in the presentation about using some keywords in your job search. So if you're looking to get out of the sciences, what are some of those key skills that you have that you want to leverage in your next role? Maybe it's research and analysis. Maybe it's data analytics. Maybe it is project coordination because you have done a lot of research projects. Those are the types of things then that you can use as keywords to search, and you can then kind of canvas what types of positions and roles are out there that are looking for somebody with that skill set. Also, as I mentioned in the presentation, and we'll mention again, using an AI tool to kind of go back and forth with AI to have, not a real conversation, a written conversation, I suppose, about here's your skill set, here's where your experience is, here's what I'm trying to do. What are some ideas that you have that I could pursue to get to my goal? And that's going to give you another path or tool or ideas for what you can do to progress your job search to return to work going forward. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, everybody, that is our time for today. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Thanks for your really thoughtful and good questions. Please do hang in there. We know The job market right now is tough. So grabbing and learning and collecting all the resources you can is going to put you in a more favorable position to employers. So please do hang in there. Please let us know if there's any other topics that you are interested in the survey for webinars coming up. And we will be back tomorrow with another webinar for you. And of course, again, next week as well. Thank you very much for being here. Good luck, everybody. Hang in there, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.